This is a block of maple burl that was very generously gifted to me some time ago, but now it looks like this. So you're probably shouting at the screen right now asking why I've gone ahead and ruined this amazing piece of wood. But I'm confident that by the time I've cut this in half on the bandsaw, instead of asking why I've ruined this piece of wood, you'll be asking how. But we'll get to that later, because this all started back in August when my friend James, otherwise known as #Tooling on Instagram, popped around to show me how he stabilises the wood for his custom mallets and what I could expect if I were to do the same. So we're going to conduct a very scientific test here called the hammer test. So this is the uncured, unstabilised one. You want? Okay. So yeah, we can see what's happened there. And now for the stabilised piece. Which face did you hit?
This one.
It was that. Oh, anything on that?
Nope.
Nope. Nothing there. So James talked me through the rest of the process before leaving me to my own devices with this massive batch of Masur birch. Wow. That is insane. What I didn't realise at the time was that the experience of watching these bubbles sucked out of the wood was simply the gateway drug into what would become an all-consuming hobby of mine over the coming months, resulting in some pretty amazing projects and effects that you'll see later on. Okay, so it's now 20 hours later. Pump is still running, air is still coming out of the blanks, definitely slowed down, but I've just messaged James and it's pretty much established that I'm at the point of diminishing returns now. So we're going to shut this off and leave these to soak, which is the most important stage, and this is why. Watch the level of the resin rapidly drop here as air is let into the chamber. This happens because we've created negative pressure in the blocks and it's forcing all of that resin into them, and in fact after a while you'll start seeing them sink due to the increased density. Right, so I have got an oven preheating. The main reason James suggested it is because it comes on a 13 amp plug, so it's easy to get installed in pretty much any workshop. Now, pen blanks were a great starting point for learning this process because personally I'm never short on scraps that can be turned into blanks, and even if I don't use them, there's always pen turners or knife makers scouring sites like eBay looking for high quality material that they can use themselves. It's quite cool. I've still got the original weights on this blank. 56 grams it's showing up as. Now it's 77. And also don't forget, it's not just about the weight, it's about the durability, the strength and everything that's now within this thing. As I got more comfortable with this process, I decided to host a little bit of an experiment where I would see how long it would realistically take to stabilise a large piece of wood. So I opted to use this piece of bog oak that needed to be dried before stabilising, and so I put it in the oven at around about 100 degrees or so, which would eventually boil off all the water. Eventually. Okay, after 4 or 5 days in the oven, the bog oak is finally stopped changing weight. Now this started at 627 grams and it has stopped losing weight at 567. Gonna get this back in here just so no kind of ambient moisture is able to get back into it. I wanted to show you what that actually looks like in terms of physical water so you can see how much water is able to sit in wood. This is what 60 grams of water looks like. Pretty much that, bang on. So in 2 little blocks like that, that's how much moisture is held in them normally. Now there's a couple of reasons why we want to evaporate this water. The first one being the stabilising resin just doesn't like it. And secondly, it creates more air pockets that we can fill with resin. By this point, I have lost a lot of money on this video. It turns out this stabilising malarkey is a little bit addictive and it's opened a whole new world of possibilities to me, and in the process of this enlightenment it's also caused me to sink 300 pounds on a knife handle. I've got a bit carried away. I need to stop. This is a handmade Damascus steel kitchen knife made from R2 powdered steel, and I just loved the proportions and the shape of this thing. Not only that, I've also gone through the process of machining up 2 titanium pins. I honestly can't wait for this. I can't wait. To start with, I sized and squared the blocks so they would sit flat on the tang and create a seamless joint with the bolster. I could then rough cut the handles to shape on the bandsaw, tweak the fit of the titanium pins using a drill and file, and then get the knife assembled. Honestly, I'm absolutely in love with this thing. We've got a hand-forged Damascus steel blade, 5,000-year-old bog oak handle, and titanium pins. And we've got plenty more where this came from, because next, we're moving on to level 2 stabilizing, where we'll be adding colors to the resin to really make these things pop. So I started with some luthier grade curly maple pen blanks and opted for a red dye. I should mention at this point that I'm using the Cactus Juice products, all of which are linked in the description below. There's the bubbles. After a few hours of vacuuming, I could repressure the container to see what we were left with. So yeah, as you can see, it almost looks too red in a lot of ways, but that will lighten significantly when it goes in the oven. Made a mess. Oh no. Yeah, I just spilt red resin all over myself and the bench, but it's fine. Oh, it is burny a bit, actually.
Just a little bit?
Ooh.
Yeah?
While carrying out this process, I filmed a tutorial explaining everything in detail, and so if you want to learn it for yourself, check out the video in the free online woodworking school popping up in the corner now. It turns out I didn't quite put enough dye into this first batch, and so by the time they cured into what I would call bacon pink. So on the next batch, I added more dye to ensure they were nice and vibrant upon drying, and they turned out beautifully. These ones in particular will be put aside for Patreon only knife stock, as well as these other beauties that you'll see in a second. Because next, we're moving on to Lacewood. This incredible wood, otherwise known as leopard wood, has some amazing grain patterns on it that I just couldn't resist experimenting with. But before I show you what I ended up with, let me explain to you how these grain patterns actually appear. So when you're looking at the end of a tree, you got this, you've got the kind of bark on the outside, and then radiating out from the center, you've got the growth rings. And this is what creates the nice grain patterns in wood. However, what you get is you get these kind of lines that radiate out from the center perpendicular to the growth rings, which are called medullary rays. And so depending on where we slice these blanks from, whether they're kind of along one of these medullary rays, or if they're kind of slightly off at an angle, that's going to determine the patterning we get on the faces. And that is where I've been doing some testing. So this is the end grain of a piece of lacewood. The growth rings are going across this way, and the medullary rays, which actually look a lot more prominent, are going this way. So what I tried first was slicing a face as close as I could to being in line with those rays. And this is what I ended up with, but it could certainly be better. And so that brought up the question, what happens if you slice this face so that they intersect the rays at quite a shallow angle? This is the result. It looks so much cooler, a lot more consistent, much more going on. And so this is what I carried on experimenting with. I was just sat here thinking about what this looked like. It reminds me of the old school RuneScape dragonhide armor. Never has a piece of wood made me nostalgic. Alright, so I've just cut this bit of wood on the bandsaw according to that same kind of angle I just experimented with. This bit looks insane. But before I show you that, these are components from my free online woodworking school. It teaches you how to make projects, it's completely free, it's all on YouTube, but in this project we're making a shaker table with a drawer. It's all hand cut mortise and tenons. We've also got a dovetailed front rail on it and everything. Really, really fun project, and so if you want to learn how to build it for free, there is a link up here and also down in the description. Anyway, I think I might have found the optimal angle for this stuff. And I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure these kind of like white bits are curliness as well. Like, I mean, just look at that. Absolutely nuts. This is probably the saddest looking camera shot I think I've ever achieved in my life. So in my quest to create all of the dragonhide armor from old school RuneScape, I want to dye it as blue as possibly can be. Of course, to make the full set, I couldn't just stop at red and blue. I also had to do green and black. So I think it's pretty clear by this point that I had really caught the bug, and James, who you saw earlier, had recently sent me a bunch of coloured Masur birch in a range of colours that I didn't have to hand. And so I did what any reasonable person would do and began making these into another batch of marking knives. These coloured knives are limited edition, as I don't plan on making them again, and patrons with early access benefits to my product launches have already had first dibs on what there is to offer. So if you want to get one of these for yourself, get to my store quickly, and in the meantime, we're going to begin working on this. These are two pieces of a rather unique looking maple burl. It's softer than cork in many areas, but also has the density of maple in others. And so I figured, what better opportunity to try some level 3 stabilising? And for that, we're going to do some double dyeing. After the wood is dried, this process begins by soaking the wood in coloured resin rather than taking it to vacuum. The outcome is that all of the soft, porous parts of the grain soak up this resin first, before then being cured in the oven. We then go back for a second round in the chamber, but this time with a contrasting resin, and we pull a vacuum. This time, the resin is pulled into all of the areas that the original resin was not able to reach, which in theory gives you an incredible two-tone effect. This came out looking pretty cool, and after a bit of resawing, almost looked like a map. But this is the one I was really looking forward to, because the original blank was so much more figured than the one we've just cut in half. Wow, what an adventure that was, and more importantly, what a result. I mean, this bowl turned out absolutely stunning, so much so that I ended up making another knife to add to the two that I'd made previously. And finally, don't forget, you can purchase these stabilised Masur birch knives from my store now. They're limited edition. I don't really plan on making them again, and so get them while they last. Additionally, you'll find all of these stabilised knife scales should you want to dive into one of these knife projects yourself. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to check out House of Resin in the description below.